All right, so even with something to copy on the other side, it's sometimes difficult to get things properly located. I had this panel pretty well located where I thought it should go, and I had this upper piece made up, and it was all welded up, really nice. But then I started flattening out this area as it would need to be to accept this piece just to look at it, and it started pushing this downwards. I started pushing this way too far upwards. So I had to stop and actually put this piece in to make this panel rigid. That way I could go ahead and secure it right here to match this body line. That meant that I had to cut this all back loose again, and I had to eliminate this panel. And you can see I spliced the new panel in to fit up a little bit better with the new location. You can see how far forward I had to move it. It's hard with a panel like this. There's no hard lines or reference points, so it's a very difficult panel to exactly get in the right spot. So a little trial and error, as with everything. Here you can see the template that I use that I'm going to start hanging the lower quarter panel with. This is based off the other side. I made that paper pattern, and then I just I've got a small L-shaped bracket here out of steel just tacked on here temporarily, so I have something to clamp it to. And then I have these two pieces here to keep it from shuffling side to side. And I cut a hook at the bottom, at the bottom of the quarter panel where the wheel opening is, so that I can just hook it in there, hopefully, and clamp it to the bumper in its proper location. And we'll see how that goes, but that's where we're at with that right now. It's important, but before I go too much further here, that I establish where the gas hole is in the car. This is the original ring that I cut out around the original sheet metal. Before I cut the entire quarter panel away, I made sure to drill 2 holes to locate this ring of sheet metal back in the proper location relative to this substructure. So now that I've done that, what I'm going to have to do is figure out a way to transfer those locating holes to the top side of the sheet metal, which is kind of a blind operation. You can't really see it, this one on the top side. From the inside, it's pretty dark and there's a bunch of stuff in the way. So one way to do that is I've created this ring which keys off of this, and it has a 3rd hole which keeps the rotation proper so that it will align this blind hole. And once this panel, the upper portion of this panel, is back on the car, I'll be able to take this, cleco it right to this spot here, and this will give us the location of that upper hole, and that will be the proper rotation for this ring. So this will overlay the top, this upper half of the panel. This is still exposed. I'll show you that in a minute once I get the panel mounted back up. This also gives me a rough idea where I can start cutting my hole to install this ring into the new quarter panel when the time comes. Okay, with the panel back in place, you can see that I was able to drill this hole based on this pattern, and I went straight through to the substructure right where it needed to go. Now, once I have the lower portion of this panel on, I won't be able to see this locating hole here, or this one for that matter. So I put another hole on this upper panel, so you have two locating holes here for clecos in order to keep this pattern from rotating. So when this panel's complete, I'll be able to drill this other locating hole right here, put this pattern back on, and accurately measure it so that the plate goes back into the exact location where it'll won't distort the gas filler as it wants to come out naturally from inside the car. Okay, so this gives you an idea how that template is intended to hold the shape of the quarter panel. You can see the hook at the bottom carrying the wheel opening. I've got a little piece of metal, a little piece of aluminum going in an up direction here in order to hold the quarter panel up into the shape a little bit better. I'm going to try something a little bit different on this side here. I've taken 90-degree aluminum angle, 16-inch, and I've shrunk and stretched it to hold the shape of both the lower portion and the upper portion. And that's in an effort to try, like I said, to eliminate this little bit of a butt cheek that you would get. I've already wheeled the top of this panel and the bottom of this panel to try and relieve this in this direction a little bit, to try and get this a little bit smoother in the transition. So that's how I've got it set up to try to mend these two panels together. Everything seems to be lined up pretty good, so time to make that center patch. All right, working my way forward in between the boring task of filling in all these welds one tack at a time and then spacing them out so that they don't warp the metal, and then grinding them down and then going back and repeating the process until these are completely closed up. In between that task, I took this template down and replaced it with an inner bulkhead to just hold that into place, the temporary bulkhead out of a little bit of sheet metal to hold the shape so I can lean on it a little bit. And over on this side, I've had to establish the location of the body panel as far as where the body line and everything lines up. So I took the aluminum template that I used on the other side as a guide, and got some reference points as far as how far in it was, and then I struck a level line on the inner body section here so that I could cut this wooden pattern here, which I have a couple of steel tabs just riveted to the wood pattern to create another bulkhead up front. I needed something a little bit more substantial, so it's just a piece of 1/4-inch Luan plywood with a couple of brackets pop riveted to it so that I had something to clamp it to. Originally I was going to tack it, but then I realized I could get some clamps in there, which is so much better. That way I could adjust it up or down to meet the profile. So just inchworming away here and try to get this front section started and positioned to make sure everything is lined up where it needs to go. Well, I got this located and tacked on for now. So this is pretty tedious stuff, especially going back and forth, like I said, with the welding and skip welding and trying to keep the heat out of the panels, keep it all from warping up. This one's laying a little bit flatter than the last one. Figured some things out about how to go about it a little bit better. Try to keep some of the distortion out of the panel. That's about it for now. Thanks.